Good evening. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of Caldwell Hearing Examiner on May 11th, 2021. I serve in both a decision-making capacity and an advisory capacity as the mayor and city council. There are two types of public hearings that this commission conducts. The first is a legislative hearing whereby we formulate recommendations on certain land use requests. My recommendation will then forward onward to the city council who makes decisions on legislative matters. The second type of public hearing is quasi-judicial in nature, meaning that the requests are specific to a parcel of land. I am authorized to make decisions on requests for special use permits, variances, preliminary plat, time extensions, and planned unit developments that do not involve the subdivision of land. However, any decision I may make tonight is by no means final. Anyone who believes he or she has been aggrieved by my decision has the right to file an appeal to city council. On quasi-judicial requests that involve the subdivision of land, rezones, and annexations, I am authorized to only make a recommendation, to city council, who will make the decision. The hearing procedures as required by Idaho Code are as follows. Staff will first present a report on the application to the applicant or the applicant's representatives will then present, summary of the request. Number 3, testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by testimony from those in a neutral position, followed by those in opposition. I will allow the applicant or applicant's representatives to rebuttal. After the rebuttal testimony is given, public testimony is closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed unless I elect to reopen the testimony. The time limits for testimony are as follows. The applicant receives 10 minutes. Those in favor, neutral, opposed, and a rebuttal are all allowed 5 minutes of testimony. I accept oral and written testimony from those in attendance, but only if you signed the sign-up sheet to speak available at the front of the room and have been sworn in. When testifying before you must come to the podium, state your full name and address, and acknowledge that you've been sworn in. I ask that everyone to treat all parties with fairness and respect. I will not tolerate any outbursts. I also ask that everyone turn off your cell phones. I am a volunteer hearing examiner and receive a small compensation for my efforts. I am charged by law to keep a clear record of the proceedings, consider factual testimony, and to stay within the city's and the state's rules and regulations. We, the city staff, thank you for your courtesy to us and others as we move through the process. And now I'll ask Lori to swear in those who intend to testify. Would you stand, please?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you very much. A couple of housekeeping items. First, number 1 is the approval of the minutes of April 27, 2021. I've read and reviewed those, and those are approved. In old business, we have an item, case number ANN 2011, that has been withdrawn. So we expect some activity later in the year on that. There is an action item that was scheduled originally that will be rescheduled to May 25th, 2021, known as the Enclave Subdivision. As annexation 2101, and if you're here to testify on either of those items, they will not be heard tonight. And that brings us to the new business, which is case number ANN 21-5, a request by Jeff Hatch on behalf of property owners to annex parcels R30882, R308821010, R3088012, and R30881 under code section 100108-1, category A annexation as described in Idaho Code section 50-222. The subject properties contain 8.675 acres, subject to commercial and services in the comprehensive plan, and the requested zone designation is service commercial C3, commensurate with the adjacent properties to the south, east, and west. The properties lie within the APO1 land use limitation zone related to the airport. The properties are located on the southwest corner of Usick and Middleton Roads, Nampa, Idaho. And with that, I'll ask the staff to present the case. Ms. Root.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Debbie Root, Senior Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, and I have been sworn. As indicated, we are here to consider a case for annexation of 4 parcels containing approximately 8.675 acres that were subject to a development agreement that was signed and recorded in 2001, instrument number 2001-01621, which at the time that the original property owners owned this property and desired to annex over 300 acres of their family properties into the city of Caldwell and zone those properties commercially. The 8 acres under consideration tonight were withheld from that annexation at the time per the property owner's request, and that they signed a development agreement agreeing that at any time that the 25 acres that was surrounding that property to the south and west were to be developed, that these properties were to be annexed with frontage improvements to be completed. In 2020, the city of Caldwell received an application for development of a storage unit facility on the southern portion of what at the time was the 25 acres that is noted in the development agreement. And during the review of that application, staff noted the requirement of annexation in the development agreement. The applicant and his representative were informed of the development agreement at that time and the requirement of annexation, and they have been working since that time to complete the application process for the annexation of the 8.675 acres. There have been some hiccups and bumps in the road with that, as there are new property owners involved that were potentially not aware of the development agreement, but because it's a recorded document, it's an enforceable document, and it was searchable by title. The city attorneys indicated that it is an enforceable development agreement, and therefore annexation is required prior to any development occurring on the properties that surround this 8 acres, as well as the 8 acres themselves. And by term, just the application for development of the storage unit constituted development, triggering the requirement for the annexation. As indicated, the applicant and his representative have worked pretty diligently to secure the property owner signatures of all the involved properties. The city of Caldwell sent a letter of compliance to the Rigby's, who are the owners of the property in the very northeast corner of this 8.5 acres. And so the city has proceeded along with the applicant's for annexation of the full 8.675 acres. The property lies within the APO1 land use limitation zone, which precludes any residential development of this property. It also creates the two residential units that are on two of these parcels are then non-conforming with the APO1 zone. They can exist. If they cease to be used for that purpose, they cannot be reconstituted as residential properties at that point. But currently, there are two residential properties there which will remain residential as long as that's their primary use. We have had a couple of roundtable applications for the Bear 1 acre parcel and the Bear 5 acre parcels, and those are pending contract basically until the annexation is complete and they know that the development can occur on those properties. In addition to that, the requested zone will be C3, which is commensurate with the zoning that was applied in 2001 at the time of the annexation of the surrounding properties. The property just north of these properties will remain in the county for now. We don't have an application on it, but C3 is the appropriate zoning designation for this property that is restricted by the APO1 zone and can then be utilized for other commercial uses and development in that area. There will be a roundabout at this intersection of Usick and Middleton, and that right-of-way per PA1, which the hearing examiner received after the staff report was sent. That was the engineering memorandum, speaks to the required right-of-way dedication for Middleton and Usick Road. With that, staff is recommending approval of this annexation, which is required by the development agreement for any further development of this property located south and west of Usick and Middleton Road, and I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Root. Just wanted to state for the record, the memorandum to yourself from Mr. Franz, the project engineering department, project manager, exhibit PA1, be introduced to the record at this time. And that describes the rights of way in the intersection of Usick Road and Middleton Road, and the city's requirements for those rights of way to be installed. Just a couple of questions. Does the annexation carry with it a new development agreement, or is there any proposal for a new development agreement, or just a straight annexation without that?
No, well, the annexation will have a development agreement that will memorialize the engineering requirements for this property. So yes, there will be a brief but new annexation development agreement for that property.
And I'm not seeing that as a condition of approval. Should that be included as a condition of approval, or should it go that way?
Yes, that will need to be a condition of approval.
Okay, thank you. And, the second question I had, what is the timeline, should this annexation go through as, projected in the staff report, what is the timeline for, the improvements, the boundary changes and improvements to these properties?
So as, TJ Friends just pointed out to me, the, PA1 has a specific statement of, that the right-of-way dedication shall be completed within 60 days of the approval of city council. So it's pretty tight there as far as the right-of-way dedication. The improvements themselves will be completed with the, right-of-way, or with the roundabout construction. Is that right?
Is that slated, is that construction slated, is it funded already?
Yeah, Mr. Herring, Sammer, TJ Friends.
Your name and address, please.
TJ Friends, City of Caldwell Engineering Department, 621 Cleveland Boulevard.
Thank you, Chief.
So yeah, at this point, we're in the process of, acquiring right-of-way for other parcels throughout the project that don't have development agreements or aren't already obligated to provide right-of-way, which this property is. And the construction of that is, the exact construction year is still to be determined. It's a federally funded project, but we're thinking that it'll be somewhere around 2024 is when that would happen. So these frontage improvements, a portion of them will lie outside of the limits of the roundabout and will need to be completed by the property owner. And then we will work with them through the development of their site plan to figure out, the appropriate measures to take as far as road widening and turn lanes and stuff, without having them build the full road section for us to just come out and rip it out later and put a roundabout in. So it'll kind of be a work between us and them as far as what's appropriate.
And, what the portion, if any, the construction costs of that roundabout would fall on the property owners?
So they would be responsible to fund anything that falls outside the limits of the roundabout. So the lake heading down to the south on the west side of Middleton Road and the lake heading west on the south side of Ustick Road, where those roundabout improvements would end, the property owner would have to fully fund all the improvements past that. And he would also be expected to fully fund the improvements at the intersection that would be warranted for safety for the in-between now and when the actual roundabout is constructed. So if the city engineer deems it appropriate to have, say, a right-hand turn lane on Ustick Road onto Middleton, we would probably work with them to find a way to put that in the interim until the roundabout goes in. But those types of improvements, if they were deemed necessary for the safety due to the use of the property, would be expected to be completed by the property owner.
Thank you, Mr. Friend. One more question related to that. What will the access during this egress look like on this corner parcel post roundabout?
So the access is pretty restrictive. We have an access management policy that's been adopted by City Council. It applies to both Middleton Road and Ustick Road. We've worked pretty extensively with Mr. Hatch on exactly how to line up those access points onto those roadways. There is a property line. Yeah. So as far as Middleton Road, the only access for the parcel in question is going to be along the southern boundary of that property. As far as the out parcels up at the intersection, currently the roundabout plans show those access points remaining because they do function as their own private parcels and still need to be able to access those parcels. We have those restricted to right in, right out. But as of right now, the roundabout plans show those access points remaining onto Ustick Road.
Thank you, Mr. Friend. This question for either of you, is there anything specific to a development agreement that, you'd like to enter into the record at this time?
So typically, Mr. Hearing Examiner, for the purposes of the annexation agreement, or for the annexation, it would be, that they comply with all conditions as noted in engineering memorandum, PA one, or as amended.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my questions. I'd like to invite the applicant now to make their presentation, please.
Hearing Examiner Eggleston, Jeff Hatch with Hatch Design Architecture. Our address is 200 West 36th Street, Boise, Idaho, 83714. Appreciate, and I acknowledge I've been sworn in this evening.
Thank you.
Hearing Examiner and fellow city officials, thank you for your time and consideration tonight for our annexation application. We've worked fairly diligently with both planning staff and engineering to look at the development of our proposed project that goes after this annexation, as well as the consideration of this annexation, what it brings to opportunities for the city of Caldwell. Right now, it's a little bit of a unique property in that everything basically to the east and to the northeast of this is, starts fading out of that airport overlay. And so you see Biltmore building out multifamily hard up against that border of the airport overlay. And really, all the balance of the neighborhood around us is developed for the most part. As we move west, with the complexity of that airport overlay, it's been a little slower to get these properties annexed. It's been a little bit slower to figure out what to do with these properties that are, one, meaningful, beneficial to the city, but also something that, as a developer and somebody who is going to be building buildings to help benefit the community, finding beneficial things to build and develop. And so, as we've progressed through our application process for this annexation, we've continued to diligently evaluate and determine other opportunities that we feel would be beneficial for the city of Caldwell. And so with the, hopeful and recommended acceptance of this annexation, we will be amending our special use permit to include some much needed warehouse space that will accommodate the self-storage facility. We've worked with our applicant, and they feel that that is something that they can also bring as part of that application, which we intend to do in the near future after this annexation takes place. In addition to that, we had kind of a range of different access points that we had looked at, and for the record, I also did the entitlement work on the property directly east of this property, and we worked very diligently with TJ and Public Works Department as far as access points around this roundabout, and even took one property and rotated the access almost as far away from the roundabout as possible to accommodate things. So I feel that individuals that are developing this property around this area really want to work with the city and staff to do the right thing for the community, as well as the city of Caldwell. And we're really honored and excited to be able to get this annexation process hopefully completed so we can move forward with submitting a formal application for development. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hatch. I do have one question, or maybe more, but you talked about a special use permit you had in mind for warehouse use. Is that on the 8.675 acres?
It is not.
Just for the properties to the south of that?
Correct.
Okay, and on that, idea, this is, you know, we're all here to examine and look at the criteria in the district development agreement. And we discussed a development agreement attached to this particular action by the city council, would not emanate from this board, but, do you have proposed uses, or is a proposed use what's there now? What is the thinking on the 8.605 acres?
Might defer that to, the applicant, but best of my knowledge, talking with those applicants through the process of gaining their signatures for support of this annexation, many of those will be remaining as is for the time being until they determine appropriate use, much like we are doing to the south.
Okay, yeah, that's, let's say in recent history of annexations, have involved development plans, that this is an exception being based on a development agreement 20 years ago. And so there's already, you know, the zoning is designated as such, the airport overlay is designated as such, so, I just wanted to bring that up just in context that if this were, let's say, starting a fresh county land annexation, would be, considering a development plan. Just want to get that out, part of the record, that there is none at this time. Are you involved with the development of the property to the south? Is that a partnership, or are you party to that, the storage unit proposal? What is the relationship there, or if any?
Hearing examiner Eggleston and the project architect for the warehouse and also the self-storage facility. That property is tied to the development agreement. So in order to develop any of the property to the very south that is part of this annexation application, or the properties to the north, all of them have to be annexed. And so, as you mentioned, typically there's a proposed development that, you know, kind of merits annexation, and there still is in this case. It just happens to be that you have a substantial amount of land that over the last 20 years has been divided off into multiple different parcels and made it, you know, a lot more complicated for us to get the approval to be able to move forward with this annexation. But there is still proposed development based on this annexation.
Thank you very much. That concludes the questions I might have. Thank you, sir, and we'll get to the others. The next person to sign up is it Jerry Dickinson? Okay, chose not to speak. The next on the list is Crystal Brown.
And choose not to speak.
And Ms. Brown, for the record, chooses not to speak. We have Sandy Taggart. Taggart.
Oh, I choose not to speak.
And for the record, Ms. Taggart chooses not to speak. And finally, Greg Fernay.
Greg Fernay, yes. Thank you.
Please come forward, state your name.
For the record, my name is Greg Fernay. My address is 4549 North Mackenzie Lane in Boise. And if it may please the hearing examiner, Mr. Eggleston.
And you have, and you did swear in.
I did,
Thank you very much. And proceed, please.
I'll just be very, very brief. I'm actually the applicant. I'm the one that's under contract with Ms. Taggart to purchase a 16.5 acre. Just a very brief background. I grew up here in Caldwell, graduated Caldwell, so I'm very much invested in the local community. Countless aunts, uncles, cousins, who've all lived here. grew up here and graduated from Caldwell. So, what we're really trying to accomplish right here is something that, in hindsight, I suppose should have been accomplished maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But nonetheless, this 16.5 acres right now, is really tied into the 8.65 that we're asking to be annexed in. And, of that 8.65, we have 2 people in particular, that have signed, their consent because they would like to be annexed into the city of Caldwell. And in fact, the neighbor, right to the north of the 16.5, Dr. Rigby, he has 5 acres there, and again, he purchased that from the corner lot there, from the Niblin. And so at this point right here, in order for him to move forward and do anything with his property as well as the 16.5, what we're just asking at this point right now is for the contemplated annexation from the development agreement back in 2001. And so if we're able to move forward and do that, and certainly, as hopefully the hearing examiner has seen, we have been working diligently with city staff, senior planner, Ruth, as well as engineering in order to put together what we believe would be very advantageous, not only for the city of Caldwell, for the residents, and for everybody involved, as that particular intersection has just grown over the years. As we all know, there's been a tremendous amount of growth, and certainly we want to do that in a very responsible way. But at the same time, we feel that that's an area that we could fill that need in a niche and certainly move forward with that. So with that, that's really the basic request. I do believe, again, without speaking for the other people that have agreed to the annexation, that they also would like to do further development, but they've been hampered due to the fact that we have this 2001 development agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony, and I have no questions.
Thank you.
And Ms. Ruth, do you have some additions to that?
No, I don't think so.
Mr. Franz? Okay, with that, I'll close the testimony part of this hearing and examine the motion. Just an overview, the state does allow the development agreement as a zoning tool, as an instrument of zoning, and it is a binding agreement when properties are annexed into a municipality. That makes a clear, bright line for the city to follow up on the development agreement and the terms of that agreement. And they do carry the full weight of the municipal law and backed by the state law. This is somewhat unusual, but I look at it as a conclusion to the 2001 action, and it seems to be executed in a straightforward manner, according to the terms of that development agreement that was issued at that time. And I have discussed a few things here as far as a new development agreement attached to this case, AN 2105, and what might be in that development agreement, just as an outline that the city council will take into a form and take final action on this annexation, zoning, and presumed development agreement. And with that, the findings of facts for this annexation are as follows. The Caldwell hearing examiner accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence list. All adopted city ordinances, standards, and codes were used in evaluating the application. The Caldwell hearing examiner, if concludes the law, has the authority to hear this case and recommend to the Caldwell City Council that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements are met, the hearing was legally noticed and posted, and the hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of Idaho Code and city ordinances. The recommendation on the annexation, which includes zoning and presumably a development agreement, based on the findings of facts and conclusions of law, the Caldwell hearing examiner hereby recommends to the mayor and city council that case number AN-20-5 is a request to annex 8.675 acres, more or less, with a C3 service commercial zoning designation in conformance with the requirements of development agreement recorded as instrument number 2001-01-621 for the properties R3088-2010, 1.13 acres, property R30882, 1.20 acres, property R30881, 1.34 acres, and property R3081012, 5 acres, is approved with the conditions of approval in section 9. And section 9 staff report has conditions 9.1 through 9.6, to which I will add a condition 9.7, that a development agreement will accompany this annexation to be developed through the city council process, and amongst items that comply with the memo exhibit at PA1 and as amended. And with that, I conclude this hearing. Thank you very much.